everybody. Sorry, sorry, I know I'm running a little bit late. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here today. Okay, so, 1 second, I'm just, let me just take a second to get this set up. Oh. Okay. No. Alright, I'm just gonna kind of leave it right there, I would say. Okay, well, anyways, thank you for being here today. Sorry. Thank you so much for coming. I'm your lecturer for today, and, hold on, I think it's good. Alright, so how's everyone doing today?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for coming. This is regarding transverberation. You've come to this presentation today. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, so I just wanted to start off with a couple of just kind of preface statements. So first of all, I want to say there are a lot of important spiritual practices that we could discuss, but today we are just going to really focus in on sort of Western/European Catholic mysticism, and hope that whatever we may come to will sort of just, in general inform whatever else is floating about in our minds. Additionally, I just want to say there are far more expansive measures of suffering than what we're going to talk about today. There is not enough time to cover it all, so this is sort of just like one story about an intersection of suffering and the divine, all set in a very particular historical context, which is Spain in the 16th century. And additionally, this is extremely important, please take this in, the information in this presentation is really not that thorough, and it's actually not necessarily accurate. So, I think we have a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so I'm just going to kind of dive right in. So let's start off with just wondering, what a weird word. Does anybody know actually what this word even means? Please raise your hand if you're comfortable, no pressure. It's totally fine if you don't. It's a bizarre word. So it actually just means divine ecstasy. It is primarily a Catholic term. Here's a nice illustration by a German saint, Hildegard von Bingen. This is representing her own version of divine ecstasy with the flames of God just directly into her brain. The term transverberation, however, it actually is specific to the encounters of Saint Teresa of Avila, who is the primary subject of our presentation today. So that's transverberation. Would you like to just yes. That seems better. Okay. So I'm going to just get into a little layout before we get started. I'm going to really speed through this, so please do not ask me questions until the end. So we're going to start off with what is ecstasy and what causes it. Then we'll move into St. Teresa's life. I think it will be a little boring. And we're going to get into the ecstasy of St. Teresa, some very mysterious things start happening. Then we'll get into smoke. Is smoke sacred? And then we'll talk about colors. Can colors lose their minds? Then we'll get into illness, suffering, solitude, agony, and finally, we will ask ourselves, what is even the point of all of this? Okay, so now I'm going to keep on speeding through. We're going to get through some key questions, just some things to bear in mind. Again, it's a lot of info. Definitely don't worry about remembering everything. I'm just going to power through this. So, some key questions to bear in mind. What is sacred? What is not sacred? What are the conditions that lead to ecstasy? Is ecstasy caused by something outside of the self, or is it instead inherently alone/inside the self? Follow up to that, do ecstatic hallucinations make you feel more lonely or less? Follow up to that, do you think God is furthermore, what is the connection between the divine and agony, the divine and psychosis and autoeroticism, and between God wearing a strap-on and you being in a trance, ultimately by which I mean transcendence and agony. Finally, most of all, just because something is hallucination, does that necessarily mean it's not real? Can it be both hallucination and holy, aka self-induced eroto-psychotic apotheosis? And this is a really key term for this presentation, so let's say that one more time. Can something be both hallucination and holy, aka self-induced eroto-psychotic apotheosis. Apotheosis here meaning elevation of the subject to the level of the divine. Okay, so that's just some things to bear in mind. Now let's move on to the first matter of business. So what even is ecstasy? Here's another illustration by Hildegard von Bingen representing her own ecstasy. It seems like ecstasy happens all the time to everyone. What is happening when it happens? What causes it? Why is it happening? Does anyone have any thoughts about just ecstasy? What is it? Again, no pressure. It's a difficult question. That's fine. I completely understand because, in fact, I think that this subject is extremely difficult to talk about because, in the words of Roland Barthes, for example, quote, bliss is the destruction of representation. So if bliss and ecstasy actually defy representation, if they are, in fact, unrepresentable in a literal sense, then is it something about which we can even speak at all? Is it, in fact, naive to even try? I don't know, but I would say I want to just start off with this.
My eyes are rimmed in diamonds, like there's a red veil over me, everything red. There's a large eye in the wood of the table next to me, looking at me at his bloodshot, sky-high, hallucinating. I brush it all over with my fingers, soft like velvet, so soft. In the mirror there's nothing there. I have no face, I have no body. You are a snake wrapped around my arm. I forget how to speak, I am mute. Oh, I have ripped the divine self out of you also. When I'm falling asleep late tonight, I can't remember what either of us looks like. My God, I shred the skin off my palms like paper.
So that was a passage from the writings of St. Teresa about her ecstasies. But actually, before we go any further, I just want to clarify, we are not talking today about this St. Teresa, Mother Teresa, although she is obviously a really important historical figure in our world today. Rather, we are talking about this St. Teresa of Avila. There is her face again, and she was made most famous by this 1562 statue by Bernini entitled The Ecstasy of Teresa, or the Transverberation of St. Teresa. Perhaps you're familiar with the statue. So that's St. Teresa of Avila. So now we are going to dive into the historical information. I apologize in advance, but I think we should just get through it. Let's just start off kind of fast. And I just want to say, I'm going to quote a lot in this section from this author named John Beavers. He wrote a really nice book entitled St. Teresa of Avila. So pretty much all the historical information in this section is from that book. And I hope it's a reliable source. So let's just hop on to part one. St. Teresa was born March 28, 1515. Obviously, this means she's an Aries. If that's important to you, please take that into account. As a youth, she was obsessed with passion and romance. She read a lot of romance novels. She had a quote-unquote evil friendship with another young woman when she was 14 that actually resulted in her father putting her into a convent, which is very mysterious. She was very afraid of going to hell, so I think she hoped that going to the convent would really help her get into heaven. So she goes to the convent, she becomes a nun. Soon after her arrival at the convent, however, she began to have alarming bad health. This included fainting, heart trouble, agony, coma. She was described as dying, 4 days dead. Her tongue was bitten to pieces. She, quote, shrank to a bag of bones. She spent pretty much 9 months in that state. Then the next 3 years, she spent only able to crawl on her hands and knees. She was a, quote, half-paralyzed invalid. And at this time, she developed this very strange wound in her throat from which she spat blood. She could eat no solid food. Pretty much from here on out, the rest of her life would be spent in agony. And it was around this time that she began to engage in extensive practices of self-mutilation and torture. And so it was in the midst of this prolonged and protracted period of suffering that her spiritual transformation begins. And this is when it starts to really ramp up for her in a sort of a spiritual way, aka St. Teresa begins to find herself wholly engulfed in raptures of God and his presence. He spoke to her, told her to abandon worldly connections, to turn to the angels. She had pretty much repeating different visions of God, different angels, different saints, including the Mother of God. Sometimes they were oral, physical, or visual, all culminating in this most famous encounter in 1562. And about this, she writes the following. Quote, there was a cherub standing near. I saw in his hand a long spear of gold, and at the point there seemed to be a little fire. He appeared to me to be thrusting it at times into my heart and to pierce my very entrails. When he drew it out, he seemed to draw them out also and to leave me all on fire with a great love of God. The pain was so great that it made me moan, and yet so surpassing was the sweetness of this excessive pain that I could not wish to be rid of it. She actually experienced this particular encounter on multiple occasions. Once, according to witnesses, it even caused her to levitate. So I think that, obviously, just kind of looking back on all we've said about this encounter, I think we can all obviously agree it is a very phallic description, and I think that that's obviously fine, I would say, but I think the point for me is not to, just kind of reascribe this sort of just penetration framework to the scenario, although that's obviously totally okay. But I just think that there's some alternative ways you could look at it, such as these beautiful illustrations by artist Nada Hada, it's N-A-D-A-H-A-D-A. If you look them up on Instagram, you can get more of this beautiful content. And I think that this really kind of emphasizes what I'm trying to say, which is just that this encounter was so obviously just very sexy for her. Thus, the pure meaning of the term transverberation, being pierced through by the divine, reverberating you to the very core of your being with pleasure and with pain. I think that if we just get a closer look at the face here, I think that this pretty much gives us a good idea of what's going on. I think if we look at it, I think that this little smile, for me, says it all. So this is why, in addition to the practices of self-mutilation and torture, that many people thought St. Teresa was perhaps more diabolical than holy, because her relationship with the divine was so sexy. Some people thought that her visions were just the devil, but no, St. Teresa insisted otherwise. This pleasure and this pain is holy, she said. Moving on through the rest of her life. So pretty much, following God's guidance, she founded her own order of Carmelite nuns. She established several convents. Obviously, this is giving a lot of detail here, but basically her teachings were based upon total asceticism. This includes wearing veils and practicing, in her own words, constant prayer and mortification. And consequently, really, the rest of her life would be spent in strife, because not only did her illness persist, but additionally, the religious community effectively shunned her for her radical ideas and for establishing, a whole new order. So finally, in 1582, her body could no longer sustain itself. She was 67, she had lived a long life, full of pain, and she finally died, drowning in corporeal agony. While she was alive, however, St. Teresa took extensive notes on the nature of her raptures. She described them in ways such as the following. They were, an exceeding majesty that fills the soul with great terror at the cost of a disruption of one's very being, or it was a lightning flash, or a terrible sight, or a radiant light in comparison to which the sun seems dim. Sometimes it was just words. Sometimes it was full visions, Christ at her side, the little angel and the seer, the full body of God before her. But always it was agony, torment, and terror. Always this constant dichotomy between terror and radiance. She ultimately found, however, that these, illustrative attempts couldn't fully capture the reality of her experiences. Nonetheless, she tirelessly recorded her encounters in hopes of providing a sort of blueprint for others to achieve the same sort of holy dissolution. So, her recommendations are as follows. She starts off by discussing corporeality. Never abandon awareness of corporeality, she says. One's own and one's God's own. Never forget the embodied nature of that relationship. Your your body and the body of your God touching. She goes on to discuss labor, prayer, meditation, complete withdrawal from material life, disregard the ego entirely. You have to work for it. And then finally, she discusses perseverance. Through discomfort, through pain, you will have a longing for those earthly comforts, but instead, you must focus on the longing to suffer. You must go into the agony in order to meet the divine on the other side. In all of these ways, St. Teresa practiced a rigorous, lifelong asceticism in order to achieve ecstatic, erotic dissolution of herself into the divine. The problem is, however, in St. Teresa's own words, if one lives beyond it, a quote, divine revelation has the effect of making one shun the world and despise it. Afterwards, she says, how can one return to this farce of a life and the imprisonment of our bodies? We should never want to open our eyes again, she says. Perhaps what can one bear to see after perceiving that most radiant of lights, that light, in fact, by which one is left blind? We should never want to open our eyes again, she says. And this brings me back to that quote about the little angel, when she's saying, she's like, the pain was so great that it made me moan, and yet so surpassing was the excessive sweetness of this pain that I could not wish to be rid of it. It is as if she is speaking perhaps of the most pleasure and the most pain, beyond that which is even imaginable, beyond that which is even bearable, beyond the self, beyond even comprehension, which leads us to wonder, right now, what can possibly be left of you after perceiving the divine in that way? Well, let's ask ourselves, what can be left of you after? Perhaps what is left of you after, is just wondering if it was even real, or maybe also, the agony of bodily torment, and perhaps simply the passage of time, maybe obsessive desire for that feeling again, maybe, despair at this farce of a life, maybe just kind of ultimately counting down the days until death. What can, in the end, possibly be left of you after? Well, you know what? Actually, you know what? I have some notes down the hall that I just, I need to go pass that back, so, sorry about that. All right, I got the notes. So, okay. Are we back? Excellent. Thanks so much for bearing with me. Okay, so I got what I needed to get. Are there, okay, before we go on, are there any questions? Just to clarify anything we've covered thus far? Okay. That's awesome. So, oh, okay. Yes. Yes.
Are you okay?
Thank you for asking. You know what? Yes. Just go on, really. I feel a little rushed because there's really not that much time. So I would say that we should just keep going. So I feel like what I felt kind of like I got ahead of myself and I kind of cut myself off. Like I didn't really get to say what I was trying to say kind of back there. So I think that what I wanted to say, yes, I was kind of hoping to just ask myself and all of us here together, how do we know that what St. Teresa really experienced was actually God? Maybe it was kind of just masturbation, or maybe it really was a little angel, like in this illustration, with just, maybe it was just like this with a very sharp spear and an arrow, and so maybe it was that, or maybe it was actually some other divine figure altogether that none of us can even comprehend. Maybe it was actually hallucinations from drugs, or maybe it was actually psychosis. I think that what I'm really wondering is there even a difference between any of these things anyways? So, before before we go any further with that, I want to definitely look into that further, and in order to do that, I need now 5 volunteers who are comfortable reading out loud. They turn into kind of paragraphs like this length, so no pressure, but if you are comfortable reading out loud, please raise your hand now. Yes, and there's a little number on the top, and I'll just, okay, thank you so much. Okay. I will call out the number, and then you can just read it at that time. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, here's one. And then I have one more short one where someone, okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for volunteering. Yes, so when you read, please read it so that everyone can hear it, if that's comfortable for you. Okay, so why don't we actually just start off with number 1, please.
This morning, a pale pink, almost celestial light shone down on the ice mountains from behind a cloud. O seraphim, seraphim, I beg of you. My hands quiver, my fingers tremble violently.
Excellent. Could number 2 read down, please?
There is an intermittent thrumming in my ear. Is it you, my God? Is it the devil? Is it a collection of swollen tissue rushing full of throbbing blood? Am I dying? Sweet angel flitting inside my body and plucking at tendons. Am I an instrument strung with vibrating ligaments? Have I turned into a volatile frequency which I've never known before? Fuck me, I'm scared. I feel sick. The sky is scary. The dripping moon is so far away. And suddenly cold. Please don't be cold. I am also far away. Is there nothing close enough?
Yes, great work. So at this point, perhaps we could imagine Freud hearing these quotes and responding to us by saying that the subject may actually, at this point, reach the point of rejecting reality and clinging to the lost object by means of a hallucinatory psychosis of desire, which Bart sums up for us by saying simply, I hallucinate what I desire. Number 3, read please.
I can't sleep. I'm thinking about it every night. It's eating me alive. I wake up crazy. I look in the mirror. I touch my face in the mirror. I have no face. My head throbs. I see my face and cannot look upon it. I light a fire in my room. Blue smoke pours out. I draw the curtains. Things were veiled in shadow and blue, and I would burn it until the room was all hazy, until I got lightheaded and saw stars. I hallucinated something like a snake in a desert dripping milk from its mouth. I was obsessed with watching how when I blew out the flame, the smoke rushed out like water.
Excellent, yes. So please take note in all of these passages from St. Teresa of the presence of the elements of smoke and color. What is the importance of each, and what can each of these elements illuminate for us about St. Teresa's transverberations? But before we do that, we do have a pop quiz. Some of you don't have one. I'll see if I can grab one for you right now. There may not be enough pens, and I'm sorry. It's under your chair, and it's just a little half sheet. We're just going to go through a couple more as fast as we can, but no, it's not a huge rush, but so I wonder if there's a couple more. Alright, I have 2 more right now. Does anybody need a pen? Okay. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Alright. Oh, thank you. Oh, great. Okay, I have one pen here. You have a pen. That's excellent. Here's one pen for, and then maybe I have some nicely colored pens in my backpack. Okay. Here's a pen. Alright, so just hop to it. Oh, yes. That's extra pen. Oh, perfect. Okay. Is everybody else okay? Oh, sweet. Okay, so just get to it. You can fill out the quiz now, and don't forget on the top, please do put a star if you're comfortable with your answers being read, because I'm going to read them. But I won't if there is not a star. So let's just do this for around like 1.5 more minutes. It's kind of like top of your, tip of the tongue, I would say. So, just kind of. All right, we have like approximately a minute left. If you're done, we can hand it over also. Cool. Thank you so much. So anyone else done? Okay, great. Yes, perfect. Thank you, thank you. Great, okay, awesome, yes. Oh, wow, that's wonderful. Thank you, okay. Everyone else who's kind of getting there, so sorry. Just, we're getting to the end. There's probably around 30 more seconds, so if you are not yet done, that's okay. But I'm going to start collecting them. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn off the lights soon. And then I will want to take your quizzes. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, great, great, great. Yes, thank you. Okay, I am now going to turn off the lights. And then I'm going to try to collect them. All right, so if you can kind of pass them down, if there's any more to the inner row, and I'll collect them as I pass by. Any more in this row? That's fine. Oh, thank you. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So, thank you so much. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And over here. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, sweet. Thank you so much, everyone, for going through this. So now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to read some answers from the ones that have stars. Everyone was so focused. That is really very cool of you. Thank you. So, we're starting off. What is the most mystical / intriguing / delightful / disturbing color? White. Yes. Then we get to, what is the best / worst smoke and why? Marijuana smoke. Need we explain? Then we get to, how many days have you spent dead so far and why? At least 3. And then, no star, okay. Here we go. What is the hottest fire to be burned by and why? Fire Island. It's gay. Okay. Okay, and then we're moving on to, do you find any particular god sexy? If yes, how so? Artemis. That is true. What is the hottest fire to be burned by and why? Sexual Fire, the 1980s hit song Fire by the Pointer Sisters? Fill in the blanks. Oh, wow. Failure of ecstasy and darkness of ecstasy. What is the most mystical, intriguing, delightful, disturbing color? Blood. What is the best worst smoke and why? What? How many days have you spent dead so far and why? 3 years. Oh yes, most mystical, intriguing, delightful, disturbing color, deep dusk blue. Yes. Okay, what is the hottest fire to be burned by and why? Love. How do you find any particular god sexy? If yes, how so? All gods. Best worst smoke and why? Burnt cookies. Failure of precision and darkness of the gut. That's an interesting one to me. Okay, hottest fire to be burned by and why? Backyard barbecue. Ethical ramifications. Best for smoke and why? Orange. Oh, wow. This person on the bottom just wrote, capitalism is a disease. All right, well, that's Thank you so much, everyone. I felt that was extremely rewarding for me. Thank you for participating. Your answers are very inspirational and interesting. I'm really excited to look through them again later. And now we're just going to keep on going where we were. So we were talking about smoke and color. Just diving right back in. What is the importance of each of the elements of smoke and color, and what can each of them illuminate for us about St. Teresa's transverberations? Well, let us start off with color. What is the role of color in moments of sublimity? Well, in almost every account of the sacred encounter, St. Teresa emphasizes descriptions of color. She says things such as the following: my room is beneath a blue veil, shadow. She says the air outside brews blue-gray, and blue smoke pours out, red pearls encircling my eyes, and violet sparks in the corner of my vision. A menagerie of wet, variegated green. The moon was shivering, fringed in red. So on a somewhat related note, I went to an exhibit of work by Wally Brad at the ICA in Boston. I really loved this exhibit. Here are some examples of work from it. And I'm not going to talk about them all right now because we don't really have time to go through this whole thing, but there was one section of the exhibit that focused on the actions of colors during times of war, specifically the war in Lebanon, and it actually postulated that colors can hide or temporarily retreat from the world in order to survive. And this made me wonder, wow, is this true? And if so, where do colors go? And why or any of us go there too if we needed to? And would we want to? Could I have number 4 read, please?
Yesterday I walked along Angle Street and I looked up at the top of the church there, which is mostly a sort of tan color, but then its rooftop, an onion-like dome, is teal, and the sky beyond it was insane blue, completely nuts. As if I'd never seen a blue before. It was unbearable, how blue it was. How trembling its eyes were rolling back. It's losing its mind. It's bursting, seeing itself that way. It's more than it can bear. My eyeballs are searing in the blinks. I can't look. Blue beyond eyesight. A euphoric blue, a terrible blue. Blue subsumed.
Yes, thank you, so well read. Yes, so here we can actually see the color blue as experiencing so it's not only actually contributing aesthetically to the sense of the uncanny, but we can actually perceive the color blue itself as experiencing a psychotic break and dipping over into the hallucinatory unreal, which leads us again to wonder if the color blue can lose its mind. Where does its mind go? And where does itself go? And can I go there too? So just after the above passage about the blue of the sky, St. Teresa wrote the following. She said, I am scared to say this, my God, please. I can't look at the sky anymore. Such blue, how it feels on my skin. The desire is too great. I am overcome. What desire, we wonder, is she speaking of? Is it the desire for the color itself? Or rather, is it the desire to follow the color, to fall into it, to go where it goes? You know, like that. Like, I don't know if actually everybody here likes Spring Awakening in the same way that I love that musical. There's that song where they're like, where I go, when I go there. Is she talking about that desire to go where the color goes when it goes there, to become bodiless within it? Or maybe she is speaking of the desire imbued within the massive black paintings of Mark Rothko, all done within the year leading up to his suicide. Or perhaps she's speaking of the desire in the work of John Keith. Here we have Man in Violet Suit number 3. This seems to perhaps represent a black body twisted and maybe even confined. And this seems to evoke suffering, yet at the same time it seems to be sort of bursting into a sort of rapture of color, maybe even a divine ascension via this colorful saturation. Or maybe it's similar to the work of Eve Klein. Obviously, when I came upon some of his work in the museum, I took advantage of the opportunity to take a selfie. And Eve Klein had an obsession with pure blue, which finally culminated in this work, Leap into the Void, where he finally manifested this lifelong desire to achieve oneness with his beloved color. Or maybe it's like in the novel Freshwater by Akwaeke Amezi, in which the protagonist, Ada, describes the irresistible desire to cut, to, quote, make that pale secret flesh sing that bright mother color. Here she actually presents red as that irresistible color which actually subsumes one back within the oblivion of the Holy Mother. So what, we wonder, is the color, the freaking power of all of these colors? Red, blue, black. What is the power of them? Well, for me, Maggie Nelson helps understand this a little bit when she speaks about blue. So she says about blue, the blue of the sky, for example, depends on the darkness of empty space behind it. Blue is something of an ecstatic accident produced by void and fire. So we have the fire of the sun, and then we have the void of the empty space behind it. A miraculous combination which accidentally produces the color blue. And this explains for me some of the mysterious radiance of this color. For again, as Maggie Nelson says, it is not wise, nor does it promise any wisdom, but rather it is a manifestation of the most important revelation behind the blue is fire, and behind the fire is pure nothingness. And perhaps this is the holy capacity of all of these colors. Maybe this is why they are so irresistible, because they are gestures of the divine, which force us through their radiance to gaze upon the depths of the void. And is this what St. Teresa meant when she said in euphoric blue, a terrible blue, a blue subsumed, and then went on to say, my God, the desire is too great? Did she mean to say, I see the void and I desire it? But why? Why, upon the revelation of the void, does one experience such a sensation of desire? Well, this brings us to the next section, which is smoke. Smoke is another key element in the descriptions of St. Teresa's ecstasies, but why? She writes a lot about this. She says things such as the following, my God, I remember how you exhaled smoke out your mouth and those milky eyes. How I wanted to. I drew the veil across my face. I watched you over and over again. I lit incense, breathed it out my nose like a dragon. I disappeared into the swirling haze. Well, what is the function of smoke in this divine interaction? Well, obviously smoke signals fire, something burning or something no longer burning. So the presence of fire is implied. What is the meaning of fire? Well, fire is hot, its atoms are moving very rapidly, it is bounded in that you can see where it ends, and it is volatile in that it's very difficult to contain and very dangerous if it spreads. In all of these ways, fire is a site of massive potential energy, not unlike desire. Smoke, on the other hand, is a dissipation of that energy. It rushes like water. It is a transformation of the volatility of fire into a swirling, quiet emptiness. And this is the important part. This is what I'm trying to say. I believe that smoke and color actually serve the exact same function in St. Teresa's descriptions of ecstasy sublime, seducing her with the promise of ecstatic oblivion. Could number 5 read, please?
Oh my God, how I wanted to put my hands on it. Shapes indescribable, the smoke poured from your mouth, picking shapes of things like penalties. Motions and structures of short twisting horizons. I reached for it. I wished to feel it through my fingers, but the smoke slipped through. Will I ever come back?
Will I ever come back?
So obviously this brings us to the final and most important section of all, which is agony. St. Teresa, in agony, tortured the body in flames. She is prying at her fingernails. She is bleeding from very strange places. She has pus in her throat. She is burning in unusual ways. What is the connection between this agony and the divine? Well, this is my final thesis. It is my assertion that in some cases a descent into suffering can lead to a miraculous ascension or apotheosis, aka elevation of the subject to the level of the divine. And now Eve Sedgwick talks a lot about this. She describes this very concisely by saying, quote, a combination of abjection and defiance often produce a divinity effect in the subject, a compelling belief that one is a god or a vehicle of divinity, which we can now sum up even further with this nice little formula. Abjection plus defiance equals divinity effect. And this brings us obviously right back to St. Teresa. Abject, the body in agony, yet defiantly insisting upon her own apotheosis or divinity in the midst of this suffering. I mean, she talks a lot about this connection between agony and the divine. She says many things on this subject. She says things
My
such
eyes is burning into a speckled purple bruise. Everything is cold again, biting until it bleeds. My room is spinning. After I die, I will eat my own body, my whole mouth over my whole palm. My mouth is watering now, thinking of drinking your blood like wine in a trance. My God, my desire for you is torturous. I ripped my arm into strips, thinking about it, coughing something. When I looked up, there was a downpour of shimmering golden crystals etching tiny burns. In my skin, I was glistening and radiant. I couldn't bear it. In and out of waking, I cried. One's own blood on one's own hands, one's own brain dripping through one's own fingers. Whose hands are they? On the hands of someone else. The burning in my side radiates and pulses. I find now my desire goes deeper and deeper as in a cliff, the edge of land before the ocean appears to be an end, but is in fact the gaping, open mouth. I step in.
So what is the point of this? I think that here we can begin to see obviously that the boundary between agony and the divine becomes more and more strangely porous. And the point of that is just that it is that everybody is in agony. If it's not in agony now, it will have been or it will be sometime. And the point of that is certainly that what happens when all that remains of you is like St. Teresa, the body in agony. When all that remains of you is the body in agony, in that moment, the divine appears unbearably near, and an overpowering desire emerges to be dissolved within it. Whence, like Bart says, to be engulfed, dissolved. Whence, perhaps, the gentleness of the abyss. And this is, after all, I think what it's all really meant to the smoke, the colors, the hallucinations of God, each of them signify this, that in the midst of the unbearable being of a body, there simply emerges that uncontrollable desire for the abyss, that purest divinity that will be so soft, to be free of this body and to be free in the end of this mind. I think that, obviously they'll also the point is not to glorify pain, because obviously it's kind of pain is not good. It's obviously not good. It's like sometimes there's just it's like there's no other side of it, or it's as if there's no relief, and that's extremely important. But I do mean to say that, that it's just it's more just that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, what if there can be actually something sacred involved in sorrow, and solitude, and illness, and physical pain? What if they can, at times, become sites of radical divine capacity? It's like, when you get crazy enough with that feeling that it's like you can't take it anymore. And then it's just like St. Teresa, alone in her body and alone in her room, her desire for the gentle abyss became so uncontainable that she actually generated the divine before her, alive and wet before her. And I am not just talking about masturbation, although obviously I think that is undoubtedly a part of it, but I do mean that I believe that desire is inherently constituted alongside agony, and what if there is something sacred at that juncture? And I mean that it's like when you get crazy enough with that feeling that it actually spills over your mind and hallucinates, but more than just hallucination, because it hallucinates something real. And in that moment, when your mind actually manifests the desired object before it, is this when desire becomes apotheosis? Is this when desire becomes divine? I think that I guess I'm just asking you kind of because it seems like, it happens all the time. It's like on the day, or on the night, or on the bus, or at my desk, or I'm at work, or I'm kind of just standing in line to purchase a coffee, and I'm just walking down the sidewalk, or it's in the hospital on drugs, or it's in my bed at night when there's so much pain that I actually start to bleed from trying to rip it out. But every time it happens, it's just such pleasure that I can actually start to feel fingers touching my neck, and that it starts to feel possible or more preferable to lie back into the unreal in such a way that I could become unable to distinguish between what's real and what's not, because it feels kind of like it's all touching me so soft, and I begin to feel so soft, and then I exhale, and some smoke comes out. What is it? And then I close my eyes. I took over the air I felt for such a long time. Is this divine? Is this holy? When I really start to feel kind of confused, I think I think that maybe it's kind of, or maybe actually this is like just a really stupid comparison, and it's like, but I think I'm thinking about, it's like the first time that you were ever touched by someone that you desired, or it's like that first feeling of that tender touch, or kind of like the first time you were ever touched in your whole life, or the first time in years, or maybe it's just the first time that it ever felt good. But then it's like you spend so much time alone, and suddenly you're just like crying in the doctor's office because of how it feels to be touched by someone, Even a stranger, even with a knife in your neck, you wrap your tongue around the blade because you were so hungry for it. But then, once it's over, it's gone, it's gone. You think that in the morning, and then it's over. It happens very fast, and you can't get the feeling back. And then what if it's like you almost become completely numb there, and it's like you can't really ever have that feeling again. So I'm just kind of wondering, was it? I just to have felt it even once to know. I just need to ask you if it was worth it, because did it make you feel better than before, or did it make you feel worse than before, or do you want it again, or maybe you never want it again. You never want it again, and then you can't help yourself. You want it anyways, or maybe you sort of just spend the days and the nights ripping at your eyeballs because of what you've seen, the beauty and the terror, and you can't bear to see anything else ever again after. Or maybe it's actually just a really, really stupid question because, is there even a God? That's such a cliche. Did we already decide that God is dead? I don't know. I just mean, maybe there is a God and they really did fuck Teresa with this amazing flaming strap-on, but then did they ever sort of come back to her in the end? I don't know. I guess that's why I'm saying this because I'm asking you. I don't know, but I just wonder. It's sometimes I'm lying in bed at night and I'm thinking about this, and it's hard to fall asleep. And I'm just thinking about it and watching the smoke when you blow out a candle, or watching it come out of your mouth when you breathe. And because watching it, just looks sacred in some way. It just does. And maybe you sort of imagine being the smoke because it moves in a way that is so smooth. And then after a minute, it just dissolves into nothingness, And that seems maybe that would just be a really big relief and end after all. That's all that I have to say about that.